All right, DirecTV took a big hit before the market sell-off this morning, but after reporting second quarter results that disappointed Wall Street. For the story behind the sell-off, editor-at-large Cory Johnson has more in tonight's drill down. Cory?
Yeah, we always say the drill down, we dig behind the company news, behind a stock on the move. And the chart of DirecTV was pretty, and then it wasn't. The stock, although it is up for the last 12 months, it probably doesn't feel like it to Larry Haggerty and people who own that stock, up 23% for the year, but really selling off a lot in the last few days and a lot today. Now, the real story here is the changes in the growth drivers of their business. Now, let's look back at DirecTV over time. Now, in the U.S., the DirecTV business has been growing slowly. But if you look at their, that's probably about 4 or 5% growth. The growth rates, frankly, are slowing down a little bit in the United States. There's a subscriber growth. But when you look at the growth rates of the company in Latin America, it's very different. The growth rates in Latin America of subscribers has saved this company, delivered some really impressive growth. This is all about Latin America because the growth rates are not only good, they have been improving over time. Now, DirecTV's pace of growth is also improving. And that has masked the slowdown of the U.S. until today. Today's subscriber addition numbers in the U.S. really shocked the market. Today we saw a dramatic drop-off in U.S. subscriber additions, just 26,000 added. That's the lowest it's been in about 4 years. These were typically upwards of 100,000 and more. So when the U.S. business seems to, the growth is really ground nearly to a halt. That shocked investors, and that led to the sell-off in the stock today. It'll be curious if they can take the success they've had in Latin America and bring that back to the U.S. Emily?
Still, that didn't seem to bother Larry Haggerty. All right, thanks for that, Cory. Now, joining us to discuss DirecTV earnings and its expansion in Latin America is Bruce Churchill, former CFO and the current head of Latin America and new enterprises for DirecTV. And Bruce, first of all, you were certainly not alone today in the markets. Portfolio manager we spoke to earlier had only great things to say about DirecTV. Latin American operations at DirecTV have been called the crown jewel. What is Latin America doing right?
Well, I think the advantage we have is that the market is much less penetrated in Latin America than it is in the United States. In Latin America, roughly 25 to 30% of all households have pay television. In the United States, that number is something above 90%. So there's a huge opportunity still. There's a lot of greenfield opportunity in Latin America. So that's kind of the general macro trend, I think. And then for us specifically, I think we have a great product. We take the great product that we get from our colleagues in the U.S., we adapt it to the local market, but you bring it down to Latin America, it's by far and away the best product in the market.
Okay, then what is the U.S. side of the business doing wrong?
Look, they're not doing anything wrong. They actually did gain subscribers, and in this business, if you look at our cable competitors who are losing subs, that means if you're gaining subscribers, you're actually gaining share. So I think it's a very different situation, as I said. It's not that they're doing anything wrong, they're in a different situation. Latin America, we have great opportunities, and we're taking that very product, which is obviously a great product, and selling it to a lot of consumers in Latin America.
So they're gaining subscribers, but in the U.S., growth has turned negative. Do you expect this to continue, or do you expect this to reverse at some point?
Look, I think I'm not really here to talk about the U.S. business. I'm not as familiar with the U.S. business. I think we're very pleased with our progress in the U.S., and I think, as our CEO today said, we're very much on track to achieve the numbers that we discussed with the street over a year ago at our Investor Day. So we're not rattled by one quarter that may be a little bit less exciting than we had hoped.
And that said, you have been the CFO, so I know you do have a broader view of the whole operations. CEO Michael White did say today on the call that DirecTV is looking into potentially buying Hulu. What can you tell us about that?
Nothing.
Could you talk to us about how Hulu could be some kind of an advantage for DirecTV? I mean, we know your competitor, Dish Network, is also looking at potentially buying Hulu.
Right. Again, I'm not that familiar with it. I think the issue with Hulu is going to be what are the content deals that go along with that. Hulu is certainly, I think they've done a good job of building a good brand. They've done a decent job of building some decent technology. But the value in all of these over-the-top things isn't so much in the technology or the brands, it's in the content that comes with it. And I think there's a big question in the Hulu situation as to what content will be available to that business in a 3 or 4 year time period.
So where do you see great potential globally, other than Latin America, for big kind of global expansion for DirecTV?
You know, it's interesting. We looked at that last year, and we went around the world. We looked at a lot of the obvious places, you know, large countries. They kind of have to be big enough for us to matter. We're already a company of over 30 million subscribers. But you go to the Chinas of the world, you go to India, you go possibly to Indonesia, and there's some real issues in all those countries, not to mention issues such as foreign ownership restrictions, difficult competitive situations. And I think in the end, after really doing this global review, if you will, we came back and said, you know what, Latin America looks pretty good to us. So our decision was to double down in Latin America.
So what kind of challenges are you facing in some of these other markets? I mean, put that into context for us.
In the context of the non-Latin America markets or in Latin America? I'm sorry.
Non-Latin American markets, outside of what's going on in Latin America, where you are doing so well. What kind of challenges are you facing elsewhere?
Well, we're not in those markets, so I don't face those challenges. You'd have to go country by country, but you take a country like China, it's obviously a very government-controlled media industry there, so that's not something a Western company is ever going to get into in a meaningful way. You go to India, there's 5 or 6 DTH platforms there. ARPUs are sort of $2, $3. Difficult to see how that's a really good business. I'll contrast that with Latin America, for example, where our ARPUs are closer to $60. So in some countries. So again, you know, when we took a look at the other parts of the world and we said to ourselves, where in the emerging markets, where there's low pay TV penetration, where there's emerging middle class, where are the opportunities for us? And we really feel that Latin America is probably the sweet spot.
All right, Bruce Churchill, head of DirecTV's Latin American division, where business is booming. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
For joining us.
Thank you.